Next, absolute, I want to get it right because it's got a really dumb name. Absolute top impression share. Let's go into our columns. Oh, I've got to be in the right campaign. So let's go into our columns, and you see this impression absolute top percentage. So I said it backwards. This column used to be called average position, and it was really, really cut and dry, black and white, and I liked it. If you were on average in the number one position, your ranking was a 1.0 or a 1.1 or a 1.2. Google took that away because over the years, Google has tried to make this portal more and more and more murky, because the murkier it is, the more likely you're going to be throwing money at it because you really don't understand it and you think money is a solution to the problem. It's not. Google does manipulate this to an extent, and yes, it makes them warehouses full of money. Impression absolute top percentage is essentially the average time you occupy the number one spot on search results. What I have noticed since this became standard October of 2019, so what I have noticed is this column really should be over 80%. I don't see it in the 90s very often. But here's what I'm going to say about this. If your percentage is in the 15s or the 20s, you're not doing yourself any favor. I have long advocated for being the number one result in the ad spots. Remember, on the search results page, you can show up about 7 times. So there's 4 spots at the top, usually 3 at the bottom. Yes, there's an ad in Maps if you have that activated. That's through a Google extension. The number 3 and 4, well, okay, so the data, I could point to an article Dan York did a couple of years ago now about, and this was a study that he had gotten from another website, but the percentage of people who click on 1 through 3, both in the ad section and organically, that's about 75% of all clicks on page 1. And don't even think about page 2 it's the Badlands as far as we're concerned. What I don't like about a click on position 3 or 4 is that it's typically a person who has already called several companies and they're price shopping. So they tend to be very low quality clicks. I like position 1 or 2 clicks. I really prefer position 1 clicks only. This is the person who has an emergency right now. They've pulled out their phone, they've talked to it, or they've typed in a search, and they click on the first thing they see. That is an ideal click in my book. Now, I've got clients who have incredible brand recognition, and they can afford to sit in the number 2 spot. Or I've got clients where the competition in their market is pretty lousy from an ad writing perspective, and they can sit in the number 2 spot. And their giant ad with tons of extensions and a call button and all this stuff completely overshadows the number 1 positioned ad. So look at this column. If you're under 50%, you have to make changes in your account. That tells me that you are most likely riding in that number 3, 4, or 5 or 6 spot. That is a waste of your money. The only time I would advocate just being somewhere on page 1 is if all we're trying to do is PR and brand awareness. If we are not trying to capture calls, I wouldn't recommend it at all. You have to watch this column and figure out where you are. The number one thing I see during audits, and auditing is a service we provide. Just contact us if you want me to take a look at your account. We can get it scheduled in. It's typically 2 sessions, and I'm not going to teach another company you've hired how to do their job. I won't do that. I did it for years. I don't do it any longer. But if you're managing your own account, I'll be happy to tell you everything I know. You're going to have to block out some time for us to do that. But typically what I'll do is look at the account. I usually, within the first few glances, know exactly what's wrong. Depending on how large the account is, It may take longer, and I may say, hey, cut 75% of this account, and let's work. Let's kind of start from scratch, and let me show you the best way to do it. But most often, I've got a client who is using another company, and they're just not seeing results. Here's the thing: if in your account you see that you're getting ad views, you're getting clicks, and then you can verify that with the location data, meaning the clicks aren't coming from Afghanistan, they're actually coming from the US, then the next thing I would have you do is look at your search term report. That's our next way of checking ourselves. I would have you look at that, and if all of that data looks legitimate, then you either have terrible positioning, and I would be able to tell that based on your cost per click. If you're paying $8 per click, then I know immediately to go look at your positioning column, your impression, absolute top percentage column, because that tells me you are way too low in the ads and probably on page 2. If we're still getting relevant clicks within our market and our position isn't bad, then that means your website's totally broken. Traffic should produce phone calls. I use the bicycle metaphor, the bicycle wheel metaphor. The hub is the website. All the spokes leading from the hub are different ways that people will find your website. That can be through ads, that can be through SEO or social media. The hub connects all those things together, but if the hub is broken, the entire wheel collapses. Your website has to be convincing. I can make you get found on Google. Companies like Stellar E-Marketing can make you get found on Google. But if your website is not convincing, your phone will not ring. I've been saying the same thing for years. It's as simple as that. And you may have spent a fortune on a beautiful website that has zero conversion potential.